Hey everybody, Uncle Creepy here for Dread Central, and we're doing something special for the Halloween season. What I'm doing right now is I'm going to give you 31 film choices, one for each day of the month of October, to make sure your Halloween viewing is as spooky and fun as possible. Today's pick is 1999's Idle Hands, directed by Rodman Flender. And this little flick starred Seth Green, who is best known for the Buffyverse around that era, and Devon Sawa, who is in Final Destination. And this movie is one of the few that brings together the comedy genre and the horror genre flawlessly, and it has a lot of nods to other horror films like Texas Chainsaw and stuff like that. So if you're looking to kick off your Halloween viewing pleasure with something fun and something kind of spooky and maybe even a little silly, you're not going to do any better than Idle Hands. It's hard to have an essential Halloween horror playlist without at least one of the Amityville movies, but I'm not talking about the original here. I'm definitely not talking about the remake or the one with the clock or the one with the dollhouse or anything like that. I'm talking about 1982's Amityville II The Posession from Italian director Damiano Damiani. The movie starred Burt Young of Rocky fame, so if you ever want to see, hey, Paulie in a haunted house movie, you're really not going to do much better than this. But it was probably one of the more accurate movies in the franchise, even though it was wildly fantastic, but at least it focused on what really happened to the DeFeo family, which was tragic and sad, but also really scary. And the movie kind of plays it from the possession angle, and that's a little bit scarier than seeing James Brolin stoke a fire or complain that a lion statue bit him. So if you're looking for sprites with a recognizable, real haunted house, I would go with Amityville II The Posession. George A. Romero, Stephen King, two of the biggest icons in the entire horror industry, came together for an anthology called Creepshow way back in the 80s. And it had just a star-studded cast, and it basically was like a big homage to EC Comics, and it plays like a comic book, and the movie's brilliant on every level. So if you're looking for some short-form entertainment wrapped in a long-form, robust horror package, Creepshow. Go get it right now, watch it, you'll thank me later. Even if you've seen it already, you know how good it is, and you'll thank me anyway. And that's what I'm here for, your adoration. So please, thank me, sweet. William Friedkin's The Exorcist, the seminal classic based upon the book by William Peter Blatty. Here's a movie that it was so good it kind of ruined possession movies for everybody else. Like, you can't do a possession movie anymore without being compared to The Exorcist, and the reason being is if you go too far, it's cheesy. If you don't go far enough, it's lame. So here's a movie that's so good it really ruined the subgenre for everything else. And when you watch it, you can see why, because for a movie made in the 70s, it stands up as good, if not better, than any other movie about possession or demonic possession since. So no list would be complete without The Exorcist. The power of Christ compels you to watch this one. What happens when Dracula, Frankenstein, the Wolfman, and the Creature get together for one movie with the Mummy? Well, you get the Monster Squad, baby! Fred Decker's The Monster Squad. One of the finest examples of Hollywood horror done right. Basically, it was almost like this weird rehash of Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein, only with children. But these kids were so great in their roles, and there's so many iconic things that came out of the Monster Squad, like the red Stephen King Rules t-shirt that you see at every convention, the scary German guy and his pie, and of course the Wolfman and his nards. So do your part, support the squad, kick the Wolfman square in his nards, and watch this movie this October. For the love of God, please someone get this spirit back his medal. If you want chills, if you want frights, if you want scares with an A-list cast, you need to see director Peter Medek's The Changeling. You may have to work a little bit for this one, as it's not that accessible, but if you're a horror fan, you probably already have it in your DVD library. But you can find it online. It stars George C. Scott, and it is really one of the better, most original and most terrifying haunted house films you will ever see. So do yourself a favor. If you don't already have it, track down The Changeling, but not that Angelina Jolie shit. That's really lame. Back in 1980, director Stanley Kubrick brought Stephen King's The Shining to life, but really it was his own version of Stephen King's The Shining because it was a lot different from the book, but it was also one of the few films that really put Jack Nicholson on the map as an actor, and no one to this day does crazy better than Nicholson. But this movie, man, it's one of the few movies I could honestly say scared me when I was a little kid, and I think it was mainly because of those two little girls, and if you've seen the movie, you know what the hell I'm talking about. But yeah, this is, if you see a list of movies you should watch, horror, Halloween, or otherwise, and The Shining's not on it, call bullshit, because it should be on it, and you should be watching it. Anthologies seem to be a dime a dozen, but when one stands out from the others, as was the case with Creepshow, you gotta sit up and take notice. And that was exactly the case when Michael Dougherty brought Trick or Treat to the world. And although it was a tumultuous ride to get here, once it did land, Sam and his minions and all the spookiness he brought with him made a splash with horror fans, and for good reason. If you're a fan of True Blood, if you're a fan of horror in general, there's everything to find here. It's probably the best anthology film since Romero's Creepshow, and here's to hoping that there's a sequel soon, because they have been talking about it, but news has been a little sparse, so fingers crossed, alright? Trick or Treat, the perfect Halloween movie in every sense of the word. Although I guess you could say I prefer The Woman in Black for obvious reasons. I'd be remiss if I didn't include 1988's The Lady in White on your Halloween essential viewing list because, well, it's literally one of the few perfect Halloween tales out there, and it really explores the genre and everything that makes Halloween good and fun and, more importantly, spooky. So Robert Lelogie's film, it just got released by Scream Factory on Blu-ray, so you have no excuse not to track it down, and even better, there's a few versions of it, so check them all out, see which one's right for you, and I guarantee The Lady in White will be visiting you every Halloween. Stephen King has a very twisted mind, and one of the few adaptations of his work that captured that in its fullest is Mary Lambert's Pet Sematary. It really captured the essence of King's story and brought it to the big screen in a really frightening way. And if any of you are acquainted with it, I'm sure you'll agree with me that Zelda, she's probably one of the scariest things ever put to film. The movie's awesome from top to bottom. If there's one complaint, I don't really think a kid that was hit with a giant truck would be looking that spry and happy looking, but I guess it worked in its own little way. And Pet Sematary is definitely required viewing for you and everyone in your family, if only to learn the values of keeping your pet on a leash, man. If they did that, none of this would have happened. And screw having an outdoor cat. I have cats. I'm not letting them out. Screw that. And this movie, the very reason why, because I probably would go find an Indian burial ground and hope one of them came back to me and I'd be thoroughly screwed. But anyway, Pet Sematary is a must-watch. And if you're in the mood for some mean-spirited fun, well, Pet Sematary 2 ain't bad either. It's not up to the caliber of the original, but you know what? It's pretty naughty, so do it. Pet Sematary. Watch it, love it, live it, enjoy it. I know what you're saying. There's a lot of Stephen King on this list, maybe even an inordinate amount, but you know what? When you're doing a list like this, it's impossible to do it without mentioning the work of Stephen King, because he's brought to life so many vivid characters, both in novel, short story, and even comic form. We got Cycle of the Werewolf adapted for the screen in the form of Silver Bullet, which starred Gary Busey, Everett McGill, Corey Haim, and a big fuzzy werewolf, the identity of whom was kept secret until the end. But if you watch really carefully, you can totally play along and kind of guess who it is, but don't do that because it kind of destroys the fun. Watch the movie for Corey Haim, Gary Busey being batshit nuts, and one of the coolest looking werewolves, even though it was a little overweight. I should talk about being overweight. But anyway, watch the movie, love it. One of the best werewolf things you'll see. And again, werewolf, Stephen King, what's not to like?